Good morning, everyone. We'll be starting the session in 3 minutes time, around 10:05. Thank you for your patience. Good morning, everyone. We'll be starting the session in 3 minutes time, around 10:05. Thank you for your patience. Good morning, everyone. We'll be starting the session in 3 minutes time, around
నేను కనపడుతున్నాను. Hi, good morning, everyone. Hi, Piyush, very good morning.
Hi, morning.
Hi, morning. And yeah, I'm handing over to Satya. Satya, please.
Happy Deepavali and very good morning to one and all. My name is Satya, Secretary of Singapore Telugu Samajam. No event can be kicked off without wonderful participants like you. On behalf of Singapore Telugu Samajam, a warm welcome to you all to the inaugural event of Sts Connects. Special welcome to all the organizations and their members who came forward and extended their hands to support us. I sincerely welcome our guest of honor, distinguished guests, and all the speakers for understanding our intention and accepting our invitation. Let us have a glimpse of today's agenda. We are delayed a bit by 5 minutes for the opening, followed by, we have a STS President note by Mr. Kotireddy at 10 following now. And after that, 10:20, we'll welcome the moderator and guest of honor. And 10:25, we'll start the Fireside Chat with Mr. Piyush Gupta and by the moderator, Ms. Nandita Banna. 10:55, we have live Q&A session with Mr. Piyush Gupta. And 11:25, we'll have a quick intro on the upcoming two sessions, which we already have scheduled, lined up. And 11:40, we'll be having vote of thanks, and 11:45 we'll have a group photo with group photo of all the participants with our guest of honor. We'll be privileged to have a group photo with Mr. Piyush at the end of the session. So please stick on and support the session. Thank you very much. And now, first and foremost, I would like to invite President of Singapore Telugu Samajam, Mr. Koti Reddy, to kickstart the event with his welcome note.
Thank you, Mr. Satya. And a very good morning to everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you. I know that all the participants in today's event truly understood how important it is for all of us to upgrade our technological skills and integrate with versatile communities to create a positive impact on the society. In this context, we want to reinforce the power of being and working together without any cultural boundaries, which can bring us incredible opportunities, and to network with all the intellectual minds and which can enhance our horizons in multiple ways. Therefore, our main agenda of this event is to create an awareness about the changing technologies, thereby empowering communities to update and upskill themselves. Having said that, we are not only just limited to technology, but we also welcome other initiatives related to education, women empowerment, and entrepreneurship to cater to the needs of the people from all walks of life. Firstly, I would like to thank Mr. Piyush Gupta ji for his priceless presence here today, and who is going to share all his expertise and insightful thoughts about this immensely dynamic technological world. And of course, thanks to all of you for taking this collective step to integrate with one another with open arms. You might be wondering, why Sts Connects? Why do we need to invest our trust and time to this new initiative by Singapore Telugu Samajam? To make sure your time here is fruitful, I would like to give you a brief introduction about Singapore Telugu Samajam. STS is one of the oldest Telugu associations formed globally with a vibrant history of 46 years. Our main motto is to preserve the richness of our language, tradition, and culture followed by our ancestors, and to promote to our future generations. We celebrate all the Indian and Telugu festivals traditionally to pass on our cultural values to our younger ones. During COVID-19 crisis, we came forward to do our part by distributing free masks, distributing free ration to our worker brothers, providing financial support to those in health and financial crisis, and translate government measures into Telugu to our worker brothers who have a language barriers. To complement the efforts of High Commission of India in rescuing Indians and Singaporeans stuck in India and Singapore by organizing Vande Bharat mission flights to and from India, STS just came forward and organized 3 chartered flights to and from Hyderabad and more than 350 passengers to unite them with their families. For the last 2 decades, we are putting our utmost efforts to unite all the Singapore Telugus together and encourage them to mingle and become part of rich and vibrant Singapore culture. As we are all deeply passionate to serve the people, we are even more excited to expand our wings, not only to our own Telugu community, but also serve all other communities, especially Singapore being a rare, precious example of harmonious, multiracial, multi-religious society, and we all are really blessed to live here. We work together with local organizations and participate and volunteer in various events and many more service events. I'm extremely happy to share that whenever we approach any external organizations, they were absolutely open-minded and they were very much interested to join hands with us in many initiatives taken by Singapore Telugu Samajam. I'm also proud to say that these organizations have approached Singapore Telugu Samajam to diversify their initiatives. With this experience of already working with the different organizations, we now want to take a step forward to create an avenue for all communities to collaborate and work towards the progress of the society by using a powerful tool, which is a technology, isn't it? It does not matter who you are. A Python script is a Python script, be it an Indian, a Chinese, or a Malay, or even any other community. Irrespective of the job scope, in today's world, technology has become basis to perform our jobs and day-to-day activities. Even from homemaker to CEO, everyone needs to have knowledge about technology to at least a needful level. We want to leverage technology sessions to integrate people of different communities. As we can see many emerging technology trends these days, I can say almost every day, and many training institutions are there to provide trainings. But how do we know which technology do we need to be upgraded? How do we know? Are there really opportunities? Is it really worth? That is why we have started this Sts Connects. You may wonder why we named it as Sts Connects. As the name itself indicates, we are facilitating to connect people to a new trends with a knowledge in technology by bringing industry experts who will share their subject matter expertise and their valuable experiences. We thought technology would bring us all onto the same page and empower one and all with new trends in technology, which would ultimately result in massive improvement of employment opportunities as well. And at this point, a participant may have an impending question: what next? What happens after this every session? We are proud to announce this STS launch, STS Connects, but before that, I want to answer a question. What so many questions? I want to just we want to make sure after every session, people attended for any session will stay connected and discuss further to achieve their individual goals. Now, we are proud to announce the launch of in the presence of Gupta. Okay. And we are very sorry, there is some technical glitch. The last Sts Connects initiative in the presence of Mr. Piyush Gupta. We are very blessed and delighted to have Mr. Piyush as documentary. Okay. Piyush ji, on behalf of Singapore Telugu Samajam and all the organizations, I salute you for your kind gesture for giving importance to integration of all the communities, keeping all your personal and business intentions aside. You made our spirits high when you extended our kind support for this event. Sincere thanks to National Integration Council for its institutional and valuable inputs. Now, I would like to thank and address all the partnered organizations who are almost 20 organizations are collaborating with us. It's a great initiative. Mentioned here, to connect, network, and integrate, and breathe life into our goal by partnering with you all. Let us all take turns to host individual sessions according to our interests, but bound by our main agenda, and own this initiative personally to serve the
So we have some issues with the Wi-Fi here. Just give us a moment to sort it out.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, actually. Yeah. Apologies for the technical. Organizations. As I have mentioned earlier, our motto is connect, breathe life to our wall. Let us take host individual sessions and to serve the purpose of integration with an integrity. We can Okay. However, we can achieve great and sustainable results when we come together and proactive to take this initiative to the next level. Of course, STS will be always there and assure you to support and facilitate in every event which is taken by our partnered organizations. Of course, we are all unite. Let's come and let's all unite and bring a positive and useful impact on the society and truly experience the joy of giving. Now, I'm taking the opportunity to announce that STS will be taking internal initiatives to include importance of integration messages and awareness programs along with our welcome email to all our new STS members with the help of NIC. We also believe that volunteering opportunities with other communities will serve our purpose of integration. We will take steps to inspire our members to volunteer with other communities, and STS also welcome other communities to volunteer with us. I appreciate Ms. Nandita in moderating Fireside Chat with Mr. Piyush G despite her busy schedules. Thank you very much, Nandita. I also want to thank the other industry experts who came forward and share their expertise in the next few sessions. Mr. Poram Mehta and as well as Mr. Vinay, they are going to share in the next two sessions on their expertise and the information security and as well as data and data science. Last but not least, I sincerely appreciate STS committee members by name for believing and supporting me in this new initiative. Here I conclude my speech with a heartfelt quote. Integrity, the choice between what is convenient and what is right. Integrity is all about inclusiveness. Integrity is not just a bunch of it's not just a bunch of principles or morals, but it is about being concerned and sensitive to all life around. Thank you, everyone. And finally, let us all integrate with utmost integrity. Thanks once again.
Thank you, Mr. Koti, for your insights about STS, our intention behind STS Connects, importance of integration between communities using technology as a platform, and how we can help each other to grow together. Now, let us move to our next segment, Fireside Chat with our guest of honor. A quick note to you to submit your questions for our QA session, which is followed by Fireside Chat. Please submit your questions by following the Slido link or QR code displayed on the screen. It will be displayed now. So you can take note of the Slido link, or you can scan the QR code to get in there to feel free to post your questions as and when the Fireside Chat is progressing.
Already on the screen.
While submitting, if you already see a question that you are also interested in, please like it. Questions with more likes will take precedence and will be answered by Mr. Piyush. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our moderator for the day. Miss Nandita is Miss Universe Singapore 2021, a third-year double degree student majoring in business management and information systems at Singapore Management University. In line with her degree, she is passionate about leveraging technology to create a more sustainable future. She wants to explore the use of data analytics and artificial intelligence to improve the way people live, especially the usage of this technology in urban planning and analytics. She has experience working at Mondelez International, a global snacks food company, and gained experience on how large companies are using analytics in their operations and making them more efficient. With this, I invite Ms. Nandita to take us to the next interesting segment, Fireside Chat with Mr. Piyush Gupta. Thank you. Over to you, Nandita.
All right, good morning, everyone. Give me 1 second. Okay. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today at our inaugural Sts Connects session. And we're really excited to have you here and hope you're excited as well. For now, the first thing we'll be going to is the Fireside Chat with Mr. Piyush Gupta, and we'll be discussing technology, how it impacts our lives, and also the trends in technology that we see upcoming in the future. So our guest today, as you've seen, is a very influential leader in the finance and tech industry. Under his wing, since 2009, DBS Bank has grown to become one of the 50 largest banks in the world and also has been recognized as Asia's best bank. He has decades of experience with banking, and aside from this, he's also a strong advocate for using industry expertise to create a sustainable long-term growth solution and develop solutions for social needs as well. He's actively involved in our community's growth and has been part of Singapore's Emerging Stronger task force to chart Singapore's path out of the pandemic. So without further ado, let's formally welcome our guest, Mr. Piyush Gupta, CEO and Director of DBS Group.
Well, thank you, Nandita. Appreciate that. If I can kick off by making three quick observations.
Sure.
First, my own thanks to Koti and to the Singapore Telugu Samajam. You know, Koti and I were together at a NIC meeting, and we talked a lot about the integration issue, especially in the context of recent times and all the challenges the Indian community has been facing. And we talked about various things we could do to create better integration and inclusiveness, both across the various subsectors of our community, but also between new Indians and older Indian citizens. And Koti took it on himself to try and translate some of our discussions into a plan of action. So I really appreciate this effort, bringing different communities together, new, old, around common themes. It's a great step forward, Koti. So salute you and thank you. It's a pleasure to be able to talk not just to the Singapore Telugu Samajam, but all the other partner organizations and the participants who are on the screen today. So thank you all for dialing in. My second comment is really a little bit of advertorial. You just said DBS is Asia's best bank. Actually, we've been named the world's best bank 4 years in a row. Also the world's best digital bank over this period of time. So a little bit more than Asia's best bank, if I may take the opportunity to do a little advertising. My last comment actually is, Koti pointed out, Nandita was Miss Universe Singapore just a few weeks ago. So my sincere congratulations to you. And I actually wonder whether I should be questioning you instead of you questioning me about where the world is going and what we should do. I think you're probably a bigger role model for many people. But congratulations, nevertheless. I'm happy to dive into whatever else you want to talk about now.
Thank you so much. And yes, of course, we can have another session and you can talk to me about anything you wish to. But I think for today, because our focus is more on technology and you are a tech leader, of course, so we wanted to hear your thoughts. And so I was watching a speech actually that you gave online, and I found it very interesting that you mentioned you see DBS as a technology company offering financial services rather than simply a financial company. And I thought that was very interesting because usually companies, they do embrace technology, but you talked about it like you're really bringing technology into the core of your operations. So I wanted to ask you, how do you approach technology or view technology and digitalization as it's coming, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic? We've obviously fast-tracked the way we work in our personal lives, in the industry as well. So what are your views on all these trends upcoming as well?
That's a big question, and I'll probably take up my entire half hour answering that question. But let me talk about, I guess, four things. First, this idea of being a technology company offering financial services. In truth, I'm of the view that every company today needs to think they're a technology company. Because technology, Mark Andreessen, who's a very good, well-known capitalist in Silicon Valley, venture capitalist, he made an observation some years ago saying software is eating every industry. And I believe that's true, that the technology effectively is eliminating industry boundaries. So you think about Amazon. Amazon started as a retail bookseller. Mm-hmm. But today, Amazon is an industry after industry. So is Amazon now a technology company, a retail company, a cloud services company, a web company? What are they? Similarly, is Uber a car or taxi company, or is it a technology company? Is Airbnb a hotel or living company, or is it a technology company? My fundamental premise is this, that the way technology is progressing, the customer value proposition is what defines a company's uniqueness, and it is getting more and more industry agnostic. Mm-hmm. And so the only way you're going to have to be able to operate is to believe you're a technology company. Now, it's not an easy thing to do, because the question you asked me is a question that plagued many of our people for the first couple of years, 10, 12 years ago. A lot of people said, well, you're a bank, how can you be a tech company? And getting people to believe that you can be a technology company was not easy, but I believe is one of the most important things that we did. My CIO at that time came up with this packaging called Gandalf. Now, as you know, Gandalf is the wizard from Lord of the Rings. But the way we defined it, we said Gandalf stands for GAN, that's Google, Apple, Netflix, and ALF is Amazon, LinkedIn, Facebook. Mm-hmm. And in between, it's missing a D. So DBS can be the D of Gandalf. This idea that our frame of reference should only be Google, Amazon, etc., and not JP Morgan, HSBC, and Standard Chartered, that was defining for us, which is to really completely think of ourselves as a technology company. So I believe everybody, irrespective of what business industry you're in, have got to embrace this mantra. You are a tech company. The world is only going to exist of tech companies. The other, by the way, alongside the intuition we had very early, which is a corollary to this, is that being a technology company means everybody in the company must embrace technology. It cannot be that technology is the domain of the ICT department or the technology department or a small division in your company. In truth, all of us have embraced technology. If you take out your smartphone today, whether it's you, whether it's your parents or your grandparents, everybody's smartphone has apps which have completely changed the way they live their normal life. We order taxis differently, we take music differently, we do our online booking, we do our banking, everything's online. Now, if everybody can change in their personal life, then there is no reason why you can't change in your professional life. And so the corollary to thinking of yourself as a technology company is everybody in the company can embrace the change. It has to be broad-based and universal. And I think it is possible to do. Obviously, adult learning is a little more tricky. People learn by doing. But if you create the environment of the capacity to take risks, the capacity to experiment, the capacity to learn by doing, everybody can change. So it's a broad theme for how we think about that. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is the COVID. It's quite clear that there were some dramatic shifts in the last 18 months, 24 months. The world has been moving towards digital consumption now for 2 decades. As I said, Amazon started selling books in the late 90s. And things have changed over a period of time. Uber, Airbnb, I talked about. But over the last couple of years, I think McKinsey defined it well. More digitization happened in 3 months than had happened in 5 years. Mm-hmm. If you think about some examples, you take education. I mean, what you're doing here at SMU. If you think about the idea of education online, it's been there for a decade. Coursera courses or Khan Academy courses, or you can go online and learn. But if you look at the shift in the last 2 years, no school and no college and no uni was open. Everybody, the whole world, learned online. Now, that was not a marginal shift. That was a dramatic shift. K to 12 education, primary school education, corporate learning education, tertiary education, everything was consumed digitally. If you told the world that all kids and all children could stay at home and study for a whole year without ever going to class, nobody would have believed it, but it happened. You take another one, you take healthcare services. Again, the idea of teleconsult and telemedicine has been talked of for some time. But in the last 2 years, it's become a fact of life. I mean, everybody's been online booking appointments and talking to doctors because you can't physically go anywhere. I'll give you a third example, e-gaming. Today, 2.4 billion people do esports. The people on esports are much larger than the people who play physical sports. And that too has actually changed dramatically in the last 2 years, because you say, why do you think Squid Game is so popular? I mean, it's a demonstration of the fact that more and more people in the world are getting used to this idea of e-gaming and e-sport. In my own industry, in banking, I can tell you that the shift to digital consumption over the last 2 years has also been equally dramatic. And I'll give you a couple of examples. First is Koti talked about it, the migrant labor community. By and large, the labor community is not very digitally savvy. We used to give them mobile phones and give them tools, but they all still prefer going and taking the money out of the ATM and then going to Lucky Plaza to transfer money back home, wherever it is. Now, in the COVID, they couldn't do that. In fact, when they were locked up in the dorms, they couldn't even get cash. Though, we put some ATMs in all the dorms, but in reality, they couldn't. So what did we do? We basically taught everybody to use simplified digibanking solutions and tools to be able to transfer the money conveniently back to their homes. We had 150,000 people sign up in the last year. That's more than we've had in the last 10 years. Or you take the other extreme, the people in the HDBs, the heartlanders of Singapore, we've generally found the people who are older, over 60 years of age, their willingness to take up digital mobile banking, digital solutions has been somewhat limited. They're used to doing things the old way. Now, in the circuit breaker, you couldn't go out. And guess what? We had a 4 times increase in that segment of the population's willingness to take on digital tools and digital consumption. So no matter what industry you look at, there has been a big step up in digital consumption through what I call hyper-digitalization. By the way, it's not just consumers. SMEs have started doing it a lot more. Large corporates, transparency in supply chains, the actual volume of digital activity in the last 18 months has grown exponentially. But that's not the only shift that happened in COVID. The other thing that happened, some of that not necessarily do with COVID, there were already changes, but there were 3 or 4 technologies that got massive traction in this period of time, and they're worth reflecting on. One is the field you're studying. I think data, but more importantly, AI and machine learning has got a massive fillip in the last 2 years. Obviously, companies like Facebook and Amazon have been using it at scale. Facebook got famous in the last presidential elections. But in the last 2 years, because people weren't able to make face-to-face contact with each other and with customers, the value of data and the value of data analytics and AI actually increased quite significantly. We see in our own business and DBS, for example, almost every part of our banking activity is AI powered. Whether it is onboarding customers, whether it is doing compliance activity like KYC, AML, whether it's hiring employees, whether it is doing programs for making sure employees stay with the company, whether it's our consumer marketing programs, whether it's our risk management, everything is increasingly AI powered. So the power of AI and ML took a big step function leap in this period of time. The second technology, which I think came to its own, is effectively distributed ledger technology, blockchain technology, loosely. It's been, again, coming, but my view has been that it would take some time before it got critical mass, before you got broad acceptability. But again, in the last year or two, that started happening. And an easy, vivid example of that is the use of cryptocurrencies. It's not the only example, but it tells you, when you see the massive scale up in different kinds of cryptos, you see the massive scale up in the Ethereum network, you see a massive scale up in many other distributed ledger use cases, and now more recently, NFTs. It just tells you that that's a technology whose time has come. Now, this technology has a lot of legs. In fact, in some ways, I think it will completely redefine the architecture of modern society. Because today, a large part of society is built in a hub and spoke concept. People notion of value is because somebody keeps a record. We know how much money you have in the bank because the bank keeps the record.
Yeah.
A distributed ledger technology, you don't need a central record keeper. Everybody in the system keeps record of everybody else. When you think of the consequences, implications of that, you don't need intermediaries, and you don't need hubs, and you don't need record keepers. Now, what does that mean for the way society is organized and architected? I think there could be some significant change. A third thing that actually came to fruition in this period of time was the rollout of 5G. You can see country after country that is beginning to happen. And one of the big obvious advantages of 5G is just latency and bandwidth. But what that does is makes tremendous amount of visual data possible to move around with low latency. And what that does is allows you to get 3D imaging, so augmented reality, virtual reality, and essentially the fundamentals of what's now being called the metaverse. Being able to create a completely virtual world and have more and more people participate in that virtual world. Again, before Zuckerberg announced obviously decustering Facebook and Meta to create some parts of the virtual world. A couple of days after that, Microsoft announced that going forward from next year, they will let avatars participate in team meetings. So you can see that that shift is on us as well. And we've again got to reorient our thinking to how do you work in this hybrid world with this part real and part virtual, and how you're going to interact and interface with that. So a lot of shift and a lot of change has happened and is happening as we speak, Nandita. By and large, I think many of these shifts are going to be beneficial to mankind. If by and large you think about technology over the years, the last 100, 150 years, it has generally been beneficial to society and mankind. Better productivity, efficiency, greater inclusiveness, a lot more people can access services, you get over, you can reach the bottom of the pyramid. But the reality is some of these technologies are taking us into realms and domains that we don't know enough about. And therefore, if you want to take a more dystopian view of the world, you could make a case that every one of these technologies comes with some substantial amount of risk that we should be cognizant of, we need to plan for, we need to collectively as people in society think about, because otherwise we could be hurtling down some pretty dark chasms. And if you want, we can go in there. I'm going to pass it back to you. We can talk a little bit about that if you want, or we can talk about something else.
Yes, actually, that was one of the next questions I had, because, we've adapted so quickly to so many different technologies, and not a lot of us know what's going to come in the future. Like how will these technologies evolve, especially things like metaverse and like avatars and meetings. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think are some dangers of technology or this hyper digitalization that we're seeing not just in our work lives but in our personal lives as well, and how do we cope with that, or how do we deal with that?
Now, I'm going to tell you some of the dangers. I'm less certain about the more important part of your question, which is how do you deal with that. But we can chat a little bit. Sure. But let me give you some examples of some of the downside risks of too much technology. There's always a risk of too much technology. The first is I talked about data and AI. It's quite clear that our understanding of how much data we want to keep private and how much data we want to make public is very, very nascent. The truth is that privacy is a very relative concept. If you think about privacy, it's not even been absolute over history. If you go back to 2000 years, people used to live together, sleep in a common tent, procreate and make children in a common room, go to public baths and bathe naked. It was all okay. Our notion of privacy as we know today is actually only 200 years old. So Victorian England, and then, for example, the creation of the post and telegraph system when telegrams started getting sent, the development of a photograph when photographs started getting taken. Now, just interesting that if you think about when Kodak first created the photograph, that was the first time people started saying, is it okay for somebody to take my photograph, or is my image private to me? Or when the post and telegraph department first started sending telegrams, they used to read the telegram, they used to open the letters. Again, they first started creating the debate, is my communication private to me or is it public property? So our views on privacy have actually evolved and changed over time. And as you go forward, it's quite clear that even today, how Asians think about data privacy or the right of society versus the right of the individual is oftentimes very different from the way Western liberal thought thinks about the right of the individual and the right of privacy. How young people think about data privacy is sometimes very different from how older people think about data privacy. But what's most confusing for each one of us, how we think about data privacy also changes. In the morning, if somebody asks me for my name and mobile phone number and email address, I'm reluctant to give it. In the afternoon, if somebody asks me the same thing and tells me I'll get 20% off on the next meal if I do that, I'm happy to share it. So my notion of privacy changes with the value exchange. What is it that I'm exchanging? And by the way, what makes it even more confusing is sometimes what I say about privacy is very different from what I really do. So as an example, if I ask you or anybody else on this call, are you happy for everybody to know 24/7 where you are and what your location is? Most people say, no, that's too spooky. It sounds like Big Brother. Then I ask you to show me your mobile phone. You have location on, you have Google Maps on, you're using Grab, you're using every technology which lets anybody know exactly where you are at any point in time. So the truth is, while you say I don't want to do it, by your behavior and actions are demonstrating that you're happy to do it. So now thinking about this is actually quite complex. So, how do we define the rules of privacy and data? The second related challenge is, when does too much information become bad for us as people? So let me give you another example. You think about the insurance industry. The insurance industry is based on a simple premise that we don't have enough knowledge. We don't know, for example, which of the 100 or 200 participants on this call is likely to get cancer and die. And since we don't know, we all share the risk. We all put in a little bit of money in the kitty through premiums, and the person who gets really sick takes the money to help recover, recuperate, and so on. That's the basis of insurance. Now, what happens when we know? When genetic engineering, DNA mapping, etc., makes it quite clear that most people are not going to get cancer, but one person is going to get cancer. Let's say we figure out that Piyush is likely to be to get cancer. Immediately, the insurance system breaks down, because for me, I want the insurance, but no insurance company will give it to me because they know. Similarly, the other 999 people don't want to put money in the kitty anymore because they know they're not going to get it. So, end of the model. Now, this raises some very profound questions. What do we want to do as human beings as a society? Do we want to socialize risk, or do we not want to socialize risk? And that asks, therefore, the profound question, is sometimes too much information a bad thing? Because then it changes how we interact with each other. It changes the nature of society and the way society comes together. So these are some of the challenges. Now, I can extend that argument of too much information to the realm of artificial intelligence. See, already what's happening is we are outsourcing our minds. When I was younger, I used to know 100 phone numbers. All of us, my age group, we did. Today, I barely know my own phone number because all you need to do is punch somebody's name on a phone. Right? So I've outsourced that piece of my mind. I used to know the direction to every place I wanted to go to. Today, I put on Google Maps. I do whatever Google Maps asks me to do. I've outsourced that piece of my mind. Increasingly, what is happening is you're letting somebody else make your decisions for you. A piece of algorithm, a piece of technology, a piece of nudge tell you what you should be doing, how you should be doing it, and what you want to do. And as you start outsourcing more and more of your mind to some anonymous, unknown artificial intelligence, you could logically get to the next thing of artificial general intelligence, which is, if you read Yuval Harari, he talks about it. You have some big amorphous artificial general intelligence machine, which is now regulating and directing everybody in terms of what you need to do. And so all of us are effectively puppets in that game. Now, these kinds of things sound dystopian, but today's technology and AI and ML is getting to the stage where you can get there. It's not impossible. You take a different view. I talked about blockchain technology. Now, some of the uses of blockchain technology are very good, but I could equally make a case that if you don't put some OB markers on how you want to use distributed ledger technology, you get to some pretty concerning outcomes. In China, for example, over the last 5-7 years, there was a big increase in P2P lending companies. Now, that's an example of person to person. One person lends directly to another company, another person. You don't have an intermediary and you don't have a regulatory framework. They found after a couple of years that there was a lot of scams, a lot of fraud, a lot of people lost money. And as a consequence, they had to shut down many of these companies and put some regulatory frameworks around it. And you're beginning to see that in other places, scams, hacks, inability to figure out who's doing what. So the transition from the world that we built, which is a world of some regulations, some OB markers, and the world in which the nation state is the organizing principle. If you move from that to a world where the organizing principle is either a technology platform or even individual tokenized identity, but the nation state becomes less relevant. That's not an easy transition to make. In my industry, for example, distributed ledger technology could create cryptocurrency. Now, if you have cryptocurrency at scale, it starts raising into question, what is the role of the central bank? What is the role of monetary policy? How does the government of a country try to drive economic agendas in the country when the whole money system in the country is controlled by some unknown people or some unknown? So obviously then you start figuring that maybe the role of the nation state in the central bank diminishes. But is that what we want? And if you want that, have you thought through what is the better organizing principle? So that's another potential kind of risk. You talked about metaverse. One of the big issues with the metaverse, obviously, is that you start spending more and more of your life in a virtual reality world. It's already a challenge for many of the kids. Many of the kids in your generation and stuff are spending hours, 8, 10, 12, 14 hours only in this virtual gaming world. You know, that is their life. The real world is an adjunct to their life. That's why President Xi in China limited it to 3 hours a day, actually. But you could equally, very easily see a world where people say, hey, the real world doesn't give me a fair shake. The real world is not a place of opportunity. I'm really going to move to this alternative meta world and build more of my life over there and create my own communities. Now, if you start creating your own communities in the meta world, those communities could be very different kinds of communities. They could, again, span nation states and boundaries. The premise of Squid Game is effectively that a lot of people who don't get a fair shake in the real world move into a game world, and in the game world, you know, everything is allowed and everything is possible. Now, each of these has got some real serious considerations for all of us to think about. How do we want to shape society? What will be the distinction between us and a robot? What will be the distinction between us and all kinds of artificial intelligence? I actually believe that as we go forward, some of the biggest challenges that we are going to have are not challenges of science, technology, not challenges of STEM. They're going to be challenges of social sciences, of behavioral sciences, of psychology, of philosophy. You know, what makes us what we are and what do we want to be? Now, the second part of your question, which I said the harder part, is what do we do about it? Unfortunately, we don't have a global platform or organizing principle, though increasingly in the last few weeks, you've noticed that many people are saying that we need a United Nations Charter of Artificial Intelligence to be able to define what it is that should be allowed and what should not be allowed. When I was young, I used to read an author called Isaac Asimov, and he had defined the 3 rules of robotics in his science fiction. You know, one that, you know, thou shalt do no harm, no computer can harm a real human being, etc. I do think that driving for a global charter, maybe through the UN, to figure where do we want to actually try and drive and create some OB markers of where we want to go could be useful. I worry that it's not practical because the pace and change that we're seeing, the pace in which tech companies are continuing to morph and all of us are going to morph, it's like a tsunami. It's coming down the pipe. So it's not entirely clear to me that we can control it, but it is really important for civil society, all of us, to be thinking and asking the questions. Because the more and more civil society starts asking the questions, it will then start guiding all of the big players in this to think about these issues.
Yep, definitely. I think I watched one too many sci-fi movies and starting to feel that what we're seeing in the world right now, especially with metaverse, is starting to feel like that. And it's not just, you know, big tech companies that make the decisions. We have to, like, individuals have to start making the decisions as to how much do I want to allow this technology into my life? Like you were saying, how much information am I willing to grab, or how much do I want to use this, and how much do I want to let this control my life? And definitely, like you mentioned, the pace of decision making at the higher levels in government, international organizations takes a while. So that is something I think all of us have to work towards in terms of figuring out. We have some big decisions to make at this point, you know, at this juncture with a lot of technological change. So I think I'm going to move on to a slightly different topic, which is sustainability. And there's also been a lot of talk about how technology and the technologies that are upcoming affect sustainability. There's discussions on NFTs and their impact on, you know, the environment, the ecological impact that they have. So I wanted to get your thoughts on how can we use technology for the sustainability agenda, or how can we reduce the impact that these kind of latest technologies have on the sustainability agenda?
Well, you know, I'm going to break the sustainability agenda into the ESG. I'll focus on the E and the S, the environmental agenda and the social agenda. The environmental agenda, obviously, the big things there are climate and biodiversity. And those are the 2 big challenges of our times, biodiversity loss and climate and therefore carbon.
Mhm.
It's quite clear that technology has a fundamental role to play in trying to help develop a low carbon universe, a low carbon world. A low carbon world essentially means that we change our economic systems and our business models to embrace new technologies which let you create the same level of economic development but with low carbon intensity. Obvious case of this is energy. Our whole world has been created by an energy system reliant on fossil fuels. Increasingly, as you move to new technology which lets you tap solar, wind, even geothermal, you can actually make a fundamental difference to climate by being able to make such a transition.
Mhm.
Another example of that is the automobile sector. So as you move from the internal combustion engine to more electric powered or battery based things, you can again make a fundamental shift. A third big sector is the built environment. Our buildings are some of the biggest consumers or creators of carbon. As you move to greener buildings, more this thing, you can make a difference. In fact, we in the process of launching, we have a small building at Newton, the old POSB branch, 4-5-story building. We are completely retrofitting the building. It'll be a first retrofitted building in Singapore, which will be net zero in terms of carbon. So it can be done. But again, it's all reliant on technology. Some of the technologies we've used, for example, in our bank, are sensor technologies which allow us to optimize for electricity consumption and air conditioning. It senses if there are less people in the room, it actually changes the air conditioning because that's a big carbon emitter. We've also used sensor technology. We put solar panels all over our roofs in Changi actually. But we've now figured you can improve because Singapore is not a cloud cover. So, but you can improve and optimize the solar consumption by using again technology in the solar panel. So the role of technology in evolving to a more carbon efficient business model is crucial. Another thing which I think technology can help with is carbon capture.
Mhm.
So it's very early days. Today, the biggest form of carbon capture is nature-based solutions. So trees capture carbon. But increasingly, we're getting to the stage where we're developing technology that will be able to suck carbon out of the environment and atmosphere and capture it. So that's another example of how technology can make a big difference. But more where I think your mind was at is how do you use digital solutions to be able to improve and help from an environmental standpoint. And even in those, there's some real opportunities. The first is verification and measurement. See, one of the challenges today is that the reason nobody bothers about emitting carbon is it is a common good. It's an externality. It cannot be measured. And because it cannot be measured, it doesn't get accounted for. It doesn't come into the P&L statements or the balance sheets of companies, corporations, or countries. One of the reasons for that is you didn't know how to measure it. Today, digital technology, sensor technology, etc., lets you do a much better job of capturing what is the carbon emission that is happening at any point in time, and therefore allowing it to be attributed to people in a digital form. So just measurement and then verification is going to be a big plus. One of the things you can use digital technology for is for provenance tracking, for example. So we do a couple of things. We work with some clients. In fact, we have a big client in Singapore called AgroCorp. We work with them to track whether the food they're sourcing from, they're a commodity trader, they source food from Australia, and we now track off a blockchain platform to make sure that the food they're sourcing is of green origin. We've created another platform with a rubber company. It sells rubber to tire companies called Havia. It's a product called Havia Pro, which again does sustainability provenance tracking from Indonesia and Malaysia to make sure that the rubber that is being created is sustainable rubber. So you can use digital technologies to measure, to verify, to track provenance, and that's actually a big step forward for how you can actually improve what you want to do. A second thing you can do is help to create the infrastructure. So one of the biggest things that will help guide us to a net zero world in the next 10, 15 years is carbon offsets. Your business model creates emissions. You're a hard to abate sector. It's going to take you time. You're in steel or cement. Meantime, what you can do is pay somebody else to actually do stuff to absorb carbon for you. For example, do a reforestation program. So that's a carbon offset program. But to do that, you need not only integrity verification standards, but you need liquidity. So we, along with some partners, Temasek, Stock Exchange, etc., launched something called a carbon exchange. We call it Climate Impact X. And that's to create a digital platform to allow people to buy and sell carbon credits in a high standard way. So that's another thing that technology lets you do. Yet another example that I can think of is how do you take digital technology to help individuals? We talked about it. We as civil society, as people, change our lives. So one of the things we just launched recently is a digital carbon calculator for every individual. Now we can do that easily because I know your credit card spend, I know your debit card spend, I know how much money comes in and goes out of your account. And so based on that, I can figure how much carbon you're generating as a person. And I can give you a carbon report card saying, hey, this is your carbon consumption for this month. And then I give you a solution saying, okay, by the way, you can buy carbon offsets through my carbon offset program to offset. So you can either reduce your carbon by changing your carbon consumption, or you can go by offset programs. One way we help you reduce your carbon is every month now we have a nudge back to AI. It'll tell you, hey, Nandita, your electricity bill this month is too high. It's much higher than your bills in normal months. And by the way, your bill is also higher than all your other friends. So they'll force you to think about what are my habits and how do I change my habits to be able to create a better world. So technology has a fairly important role to play in how do you drive the E part of the agenda. But technology also has a very important role to play in the S part of the agenda. So now, I think one of the big challenges we are facing and will face is the challenge of social inequity. And a large part of that is income inequity. So how do you actually create a more inclusive environment? And how do you get to the bottom of the pyramid? Again, one of the challenges with that has been getting financial assistance and getting financial inclusion for customers in that segment. I gave you the example of migrant workers. The fact that we were able to give them digital mobile solutions, which allows them to open a digital account, to save money more easily and transfer money more easily, is a great example of how you can use technology to get to the bottom of the pyramid. Again, at DBS, and forgive me, I'm only giving you DBS stories because that's all I know. We've launched something else, which is a retail budgeting and planning tool. Today, almost 2 million people in Singapore use our budgeting and planning digital tool to set up monthly budgets on how much they want to spend on food, how much they want to spend on clothing. And then based on that, we help convert from being cash negative to cash positive. And once you're cash positive, we help people through regular savings plans and what we call a digital portfolio, start putting that money to work for old age, retirement, and pensions. Now, again, these are all solutions to be able to solve the S problem, leveraging technology that exists today and that you can put to use.
All right, thank you so much. I think now we have covered so many topics. We've covered technology, digitalization, how do we cope with that, dangers of technology and sustainability as well. And super grateful for all the sharing that you've given us. I think now we'll be switching into the question and answer segment. Sorry, I think there's some, we'll be doing the question and answer segment a little later, but okay, then I have one last question from my side. As someone who is very young and I'm going to be entering the workforce soon, and I had a question about what do you think are some of the fields or latest trends in the technology industry or in general that young or fresh graduates should be keeping an eye on or exploring?
Well, Nandita, I already mentioned them. I think data and AI is game changing. So, mastering data, which is what you're doing, is a fantastic field to be in. I think blockchain and distributed ledger technology is going to be very important. So understanding and participating in that is important. Again, you got to understand the protocols vary. So whether you're doing proof of stake, whether you're doing, you talked, actually, I didn't talk about a question about NFTs and crypto and so on. The reality, even that technology is evolving. So one of the downsides of the Bitcoin and the old crypto is it requires a lot of mining, because the nature of the algorithm there is based on a concept called proof of work. So you've got to do a huge amount of computing and use massive compute power and a lot of work to solve the problem, and then therefore be able to access the block. But increasingly today, companies are getting to different ways of doing that through something called proof of stake or proof of ownership. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, we announced that DBS is going to join the governing body of the Hashgraph, the Hedera Foundation. One of the premises of that is that we're going to try and redefine how the blockchain protocols work in a non-carbon intensive and very low-cost way. Ethereum 2.0 is also launching new protocols around that. So technology itself is evolving to get to be a lot less carbon intensive in this whole DLT arena, blockchain arena. So I think that's an area that you need to keep an eye on. And I do think that trying to understand UX and design for both the 2D world and the 3D world, the metaverse, is important. In a 3D and with the 5G, whether you're metaverse or not, you will have IoT. So you're getting to the stage where understanding how a car can initiate payment for the fuel by itself how the fridge can initiate this thing to fill up, top up milk in the fridge by itself. And these are all things which are on us. So understanding the transition of technology in each of these could be actually quite important. But my actual advice to most people your age is technology is important, but reflect on the other thing I said. I do believe that in the next 10 years, the role of social sciences is underestimated and understood. I think the big challenges for us will not be challenges of technology. There will be challenges of philosophy, there will be challenges of social psychology, there will be challenges of anthropology and ethnography. So developing and honing our instincts around those questions, understanding the history of human beings and where we want to go, I think those are going to play as important a role in the future as just understanding technology and coding mind.
Yes, definitely. I think when you mentioned initially that, we should be focusing on behavior science and understanding why the data is the way it is, because it's not just enough to get the insights from the data analytics, but why does that happen and understanding how it impacts people as well. I think that's very important and something I need to keep in mind as well, because there's been a lot of push to, just go into technology. The technology is the future, but we also need to realize that we're ultimately human and we need to think about how it affects our humanity. And like I said, a lot of big decisions we have to make as a humanity to think about how much we want to use technology in our daily lives. So I think with that, we've come to the end of the Fireside Chat segment. Mr. Piyush, thank you so much for all the great insights you've given us, so many topics we've covered. So now we'll be moving on to the question and answer segment, and we'll be taking questions from the audience. So we have got some questions in the Slido link, which I think we'll post in the chat again. If you have any questions, please drop it in there. And please like any questions you see on Slido. If you like them, they go up on the ranking and we'll pick the most popular questions. So while we wait for more people to drop their questions, we do have a few, so I'll get started. Mr. Piyush, there is a question from the audience that is, do you think fintech is seen as a threat to traditional banking? And how do you think banks are embracing the situation of fintech being very popular now?
Well, I don't think, what is fintech? And fintech is not a company. Fintech is using technology in finance. That's what fintech is. And the reality is technology today is available to anybody. It's all open source. So the same technology that a startup uses or Google uses or Alibaba uses, the same technology any bank can use as well. So there's no monopoly on technology. There's no premium on technology. In fact, today, the technology we use at DBS is exactly the same as any startup would use. And along the way, we've built up a lot of big technology capability. Today, we employ 10,000 technologists. We have only 5,000 bankers. We have 10,000 technologists. So then you go to argue, are we a technology company and fintech, or are we a bank? So I think it's a misguided view to think fintech is different from banking. So really the fundamental question is different. And the question is, how does every company embrace technology? And if you as a traditional bank, an incumbent bank, can embrace technology in a way that gives the customer better customer experience, that solves for inconvenience and convenience, that creates a better consumer value proposition, then you can survive and you can win. And then you can call yourself a fintech if you choose to call yourself a fintech. You can make that distinction. And therefore, the underlying thing you see that some companies and some traditional banks are being able to make the transition, but others are not. To make the transition requires not just embracing technology, though, it requires embracing a culture change. And that's really the nub. The problem is that most traditional organizations are unable to make the culture change that is required to embrace this. But if you can make the culture change happen, then the technology you can always acquire and gain.
All right. Okay. Thank you. And that makes a lot of sense as well, that we should really be integrating technology and not seeing it as something different from what we're currently doing, actually. I think along the same line, there's another question that metaverse has been a buzzword in the technology world and all the major tech companies are following the suit. Any plans for DBS to get on this bandwagon?
Well, it's early days. We're experimenting. So we have an innovation process every year, and we have 3 or 4 different ways of doing it. But every year we choose a couple of themes to put some money to experiment with. And 12, 18 months ago, we chose this idea of trying to see what we could do with the metaverse. So we have a small team of 8-10 people fooling around with it. We've done some things which are more gaming-like. But we're actively looking at seeing how we could extend it from there. And as you get into a more, bigger metaverse, what kind of role that could a virtual bank play in that. So it's very early days, and I'll hasten to add that it's really just experiment in the spirit of experimentation. But yeah, we're sort of fooling around with it right now.
I think it would be a great idea because especially for the younger generation and people younger than me as well, financial literacy at a young age is very important. And I think a metaverse gaming idea for financial literacy coming straight from a bank would be quite useful for people like us.
That's one of the things we are exploring as well. That's true.
Okay, great. So I'll be looking out for that. So I think there's another question that we have. This is more about your personal, how you approach your work, but we would like to know 3 success mantras with real life examples. How do you stay motivated and stay innovative?
Well, first of all, I read a lot and I talk a lot to people. So, there is this construct of always having a growth mindset and always learning. I'm not a computer science background. I never did any training. I learned it all on the job. Mm-hmm. But all of the stuff I do because I read a lot, I talk to a lot of people, and I'm constantly curious about what's coming down the pipe. I also take time to sit back and form a point of view. So if this is coming, how could this impact? How would it change? And instead of accepting the shibboleths, I try to question and say, what is the impact of this? Where could this go? I think that is one of my strengths. I take the capacity to try and figure out the signal from the noise and bring the outside in, I call it. So that's an area I focus on. Second, I generally, I do 2 things. I rely a lot on people. So I'm a big believer in building good teams. You can't do everything yourself. And so you have to be able to build a good team. But the trick to building a good team is getting alignment. And essentially focusing a lot on getting alignment, getting a common purpose, getting a common true north. That's extremely powerful. You can actually outperform. You don't need prima donnas on your team. But if you have alignment in the team, you can outperform a team of prima donnas. And so I focus a lot on trying to get an aligned team to be able to work. And then within that, I do the helicopter thing. So, I sort of zoom out, and there are a few areas where I zoom deep in and I work closely because I think those are going to be really relevant. You can't zoom in on everything, but some things I choose to zoom in every year. And so those are things I'm going to do. I don't know. I guess I would say the person is very eclectic. And people talk about work-life balance. I think that's a myth. I love my work, so I don't need to balance it with anything. But at the same time, I do create enough time for myself. So I do yoga and meditation. I do the crossword. I do bird watching, and play some golf. I'm active on social media, so I read actively. So I try to put a lot of balance into everything I do, not necessarily just the work that I do.
Yep, I think the work-life balance is extremely important, especially now when, like back-to-back calls, and because it's all digital, people assume that you're very easily reachable no matter what time of the day. I think that especially is like something I really want to incorporate. And it's interesting to hear that you're into bird watching, so we might find you outside in a park one day.
I've actually been to this thing. So in fact, where you're talking about, I go to the Passi race, and I've been to Bangalore a couple of times to bird watching over there.
That's nice. That's very nice. I think, yes, we have one more question that's more about, it's a slightly different topic. So there's a high number of spam calls that we get from different locations, and often they're representing these banks, especially like DBS. So how do we tackle such calls? Or how are you as a company tackling such calls, maybe using technology perhaps?
So first of all, the first thing is everybody's got to be personally very, very aware. The reason a lot of scamsters use the DBS name, and that's only because we are the biggest fish in the pond. We've got 4 million accounts, and we have the largest number of savings. So if you go to Hong Kong, scamsters always use HSBC's name. Mm-hmm. And if you go to Indonesia, they try and use Mandiri or BCA's name. So the scamsters tend to use the name of the bank, which is the biggest presence, because they're most likely to get a hit. We work with the telcos. One thing we've done, so we should watch out, that if your incoming call starts with a +65, it's a scam call. Because no call which comes from in Singapore normally starts with a +65. All the ones with +65 are scam calls. So when I see a +65 call, I just disconnect it anyway. I know it's not a real call, it's a scam call. So be careful. The other thing, of course, is irrespective, be really thoughtful about the information. We talked about data privacy. The last thing you want to do is give away information relative to your bank account, your password, etc. It's like giving away the key to your house and expecting somebody not going to come and open the door at night and walk in. I mean, so, be a little sensible about what you want to give away. So I guess that's my first pitch. The second, though, what we do at the bank, we increasingly are putting in a lot of AI and algorithms to try and figure out, does this transaction look like something you would normally do? It's not easy because in reality, everybody does, and okay, like normally, you only get a monthly income. But it's not like sometimes you don't sell shares and you'll get a big credit, or you don't sell your house, you get a big credit. And if I stop all those transactions, you're going to get really mad. So AI is not well enough, advanced enough to catch 100%, but AI is reasonably well advanced that we are able to catch a reasonable number of saying, hey, this one's looking odd. This is not the normal pattern of the customer behavior. And when we do that, then our technology allows us to call the customer and say, hey, are you sure this is what you want to do, and this is you, and this is what you're doing. So the technologies let us get to the stage where we can do that a fair amount of the time, but it's not foolproof. It's not foolproof just because your behavior is not always consistent. Your behavior varies a little bit, but that's something we're doing. We're increasingly also working with the rest of the whole of Singapore. We're talking about integration coding. So we're working with the telcos, with the cybersecurity agency, with the police, to make sure as a country we come together to try and squeeze some of these scamsters out, because this is not just a banking issue. Last time, the scamsters went and hacked into the telco infrastructure, right? And so you got to make sure that every other agency in the government also comes together to try and make a concerted effort to try and squeeze these people out.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think the metaverse idea that you were talking about, maybe DVS could use it to educate people, especially people who don't realize how these scams work or how impactful it can be, because they simply think, oh, the bank is messaging me, let me pass them my information. So maybe that could be used to reach out to them as well.
That's a great idea. I'll take that back to the team.
So I think we have a question about cryptocurrency and how it's used and how governments approach it. So Singapore wants to become a global crypto hub, as the MAS has said, and China, on the other hand, is banning cryptocurrency to some extent. So what do you think should be India's RBI course of action in tackling cryptos or approaching them?
RBI has also been like China. They banned all cryptocurrencies technically. But let me step back a bit and make first do some taxonomy. Mm-hmm. So if we think about digital currency, right? I think digital currency is going to happen. If you really think about money as we know it, 99% of it is all digital anyway. So when I transfer money from one bank to another bank, when you transfer money on PayNow or PayLah, it's not like we're physically taking anything from one bank to the other. It's all going in bits and bytes. It's all digital. So the bulk of money in the world is digital and has been for a long period of time. But when you take it forward, now we really focus on the last bit, which is the notes and coins in the system. Do you convert the notes and coins in the system also into digitized form? And I think that will happen. Now, people don't normally call it crypto, but that's another form of crypto. What people normally think of that is the CBDC, central bank digital currency. The central bank digital currency, the Chinese are experimenting with it, but so a lot of other countries. I think that will happen. The notion that already today you can use our PayLah to go and make payment. In China, you can use Alipay, WeChat Pay. In the US, you can use Venmo. More and more people are getting out of physical notes and coins and moving to just using your phone or digital. So if you count all of that in the realm of cryptocurrency, that is definitely in the next 10 years, I think notes and coins will pretty much disappear. If you go to China today, you can't use notes and coins. Nobody accepts them anymore. Then if you are more limited in your definition of cryptocurrency, which is what happens to this third-party large issuance of currency like Bitcoin or Ethereum or one of these, I think those have a more, at least for now, are going to have a more limited use case. If you think about money, money's got three attributes. Economics 101. It's got to be a medium of exchange, it's got to be a unit of account, and it's got to be a store of value. Today, all of these cryptos are unable to serve the first two functions. It's hard for them to be a unit of account or a medium of exchange because of the massive amount of volatility in the price. So if you want to go and buy something with a Bitcoin, then one Bitcoin is worth 60,000 one day, 40,000 a second day, 20,000 a third day. It's very hard to figure how much you're paying for it. It'll take time for those two functions to happen because you need mass adoption and you need more granular usage. Our earlier conversation, Nanta, is that one of the things you need for that is a cheaper way of being able to do this. Bitcoin today takes several minutes, large latency, huge compute power, massive carbon generation So it's not an ideal thing to actually use for using as a medium of exchange, particularly in consumer payments and consumer traffic. It's going to take time to get there. But as a third function, which is a store of value, it is already proving to be a store of value. There's $2 trillion invested in Bitcoin today, so you can't argue that it is a store of value. Now, the question people ask is, how can it be a store of value, or including NFT? Why is NFT a store of value when there is nothing really, there's no tangible stuff? And then you've got to get again, going back, you've got to be a bit philosophical. What constitutes value? The reality is value is only anything that we collectively agree to believe is valuable. It's only a function of human myth. We collectively believe the story. So when you say, why is gold valuable? Gold is not valuable because gold is the rarest metal on the earth. There are more rare metals. Gold is not valuable because gold is the most useful metal on earth. There are a lot more useful metals. Gold is only valuable because all of us collectively believe that gold jewelry is good and therefore we value gold. And it's valuable because we know somebody else is going to pay money for it. So value gets determined by a collective myth and a supply-demand equation that somebody else will pay me money for this. Now, when you bring it down to that simple thing, that's what you pay for, then you can attribute that to anything. I asked the question, when Metacoven, that 68 million bucks was NFT, I was sort of pondering, why would somebody pay 68 million bucks? And then I saw a reason. Why would Mona Lisa fetch whatever it is, $1 billion, $100 million in the market? Mona Lisa, you don't pay for the beauty. You can go to Louvre and see the picture morning to night just for a small ticket. Mona Lisa, you can see even better on your computer. It'll show you everything. So you're not paying for the beauty, you're not paying for the value, you're only paying for the sense of ownership and the fact that somebody else is going to buy the painting from you for a value. Now, when you attribute that, then as long as you're a big enough community which believes that this is valuable and I will pay for it, that's what will make Bitcoin valuable, that's what makes NFTs valuable. So in that context, could you create stores of value in things because you get enough in the community to ascribe collective belief to something? That, of course, is possible.
Okay. So thank you so much for that sharing. And we have one more question, which is quite similar to what crypto is trying to achieve, which is international transactions. So the question we have is DBS going to be launching any sort of UPI payment system that can transfer money across the world instantly? And if continuing in the future in 2022, so Singapore's PayNow and India's UPI will be linking up. So what do you think are the business prospects of the private remittance platforms in Singapore once that happens?
Yeah. So first of all, we already do that. We have a product called DBS Remit, which is the most used payment platform. And the way we do it is actually old-fashioned because, the way the settlement system in the world has always worked is through, say, hub and spoke. So you go, if you want to transfer money from here into India, you sort of go through New York, you convert Sing dollar to US dollar to Indian rupee, it goes, and it takes like 2-3 days. We figured that by setting up our own network arrangements, with bilateral this thing with every country, you can do instant transfer. And so for the last several years, we do instant transfer into several countries. So you transfer on DBS Remit, within minutes, it gets paid into any part of the country today. So you can do that in today 55 different currencies and countries, of which 11 or 12 are instant. The others take 2 hours or 3 hours to get there. But what we're also doing is we realized that you could achieve the same thing using the modern technology, the blockchain technology platform. So we've launched a company called Partior, along with JP Morgan and Temasek, which is really seeing how you can use distributed ledger technology in the blockchain to do instant settlement anywhere in the world, any currency. We've just launched it last month. We're now doing Sing dollar and US dollar. We are creating a network of participants, so bringing in other banks to be parts of the network. And if that works, we think we can use blockchain technology to do this, instant payment anywhere at any time. Now, you could also achieve that by many of these bilateral linkages. We have linkage with Thailand's PromptPay, with PayNow. We're doing one with UPI, and then we're going to do with the Malaysians with Do It and so on. So that's a third way of just doing the same thing, being able to do instant transfer. And when you do that, actually, the front end of the system still goes to the bank. So you take Thailand's PromptPay. All of our customers still come to us to do the payment, but instead of going through the first method, which is hub and spoke, or going through my own bilateral link, I now just link PayNow into PromptPay. It pays into Thailand. So it doesn't change the value proposition to the customer, which is to come through the bank and let the bank do it. All it changes are the engine, the rails at the back. That's the change that you wind up with.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing about that. And I think, okay, we have another question that's a bit more broad in a sense, not about specific technologies. But the question is, frequent technology advancements can become quite taxing to common people. Like we have suddenly had to incorporate Zoom and so many different technologies into our lives. And it can be taxing to people who are not so technology used to technology. So are all of these technology changes really needed, or should we be accommodating people in different ways? So what are your thoughts on the impact these fast changing technologies have on us?
So I guess I'll make three observations. One, you can't change it because the pace of change of technology is on us. So no matter what you wish, I think it will happen. And by and large, I think it's for the good. I think the world would have shut down and had massive economic dislocation in the last 2 years if it wasn't for technologies like this. I could not be talking to 200 of you with the pandemic on us if it wasn't for technologies like this. So by and large, I think technology is the force for good. The second part of the question is how do you make sure it's inclusive and not exclusionary? How do you get more and more people to embrace it? And that links back to the earlier comment you made, and there's, how do you educate people? I found that adults learn by doing and a little bit of experimentation. So if somebody just tells you, something about Zoom, it's not easy to understand. But if somebody sits with you and shows you, you press this and then you put this and you do it 2-3 times, you get the hang of it. So even my parents who are, plus minus 90 years, through the pandemic, they've all been able to do Zoom calls and been able to talk to people. And they're delighted because now they can talk to their great-grandchildren on Zoom. They could never do it. And it took a few sessions for them to learn how to do this. But I think you have to make the effort. So I think whether through your metaverse idea or through other forces, it is really incumbent on us to make the effort to educate and bring people along. In the DBS system, for example, we hire about 150 elderly volunteers. In all of our branches and our ATM centers, the volunteers just hang around to teach other elderly people how to use something on their mobile phone, how to use it on iPad, and we sort of show them a few times till they get comfortable doing it. I think that's the only way to do it. You've got to bring people along for the ride and for the journey. I think having said that, you also need to understand that finally, there will be some people who can't make it, and then you have to cater for them.
Yeah.
So you go back to this idea of currency. In the Scandinavian countries are most advanced in terms of eliminating currency. But last year, they actually then set up a committee in parliament to say, hey, while we're eliminating currency, we should not go down to zero. Because there will always be some people who are not able to use digital currency, so they must have the right and the ability to still use notes and coins. And they're going to legislate for that. About 18 months ago, 2 years ago, we wired up a number of the universities. In particular, we wired up NUS. So everywhere you could only use PayLah and PayNow all over the NUS to pay. And by mistake, I think, I forget who, the dean or the president or somebody made a statement saying that, within the next year, we're going to eliminate use of cash on campus. Within 48 hours, there were 1,700 signatures from students saying you can't eliminate cash because some of us need to use cash. So I think you're going to recognize that there will be some residual parts of the population, and you have to cater for them. You cannot exclude them.
Yeah. And I really like the idea that you said of volunteers, teaching other elderly people how to use, because it's always nice to have that human touch, especially when you're dealing with something so different and something that they're not used to before. And I think in our university as well, we've been having sessions where university volunteers, we go down, we teach people how to use Zoom, because basic digital literacy is very important nowadays. You can't, like you said, if everywhere is digitalized, like PayNow, PayLah, or attending events via Zoom, even applying for jobs, it's all online, or you don't go up to someone and say, hey, can I get a job? So everything is digitalized, and basic digital literacy is really like as core, I would say, as like a primary school education nowadays, because you can't function in the world without it. So that's very interesting to hear from you as well. I think we have one more question about crypto, and someone is asking, when is DBS Crypto Exchange going to be available in Singapore?
DBS Crypto Exchange is available in Singapore, except we've kept it limited to only private banking and accredited investors. But it's very active. In fact, in the last 2 months, we made it 24/7, and our volumes have gone through the roof. We did more trading in the last 2 months than we did in the first 8. And our assets under custody now, the crypto assets we hold, are up to over $500 million. So it is there, it is active. We're seeing a lot of very good traction with our customers. Eventually, we might be able to take it from just the wealthy, this thing into the broader retail market. But we're going to be a little bit careful as we do that, because one of the things, to your earlier question, I think crypto, only the informed should be in it, because it's a store of value, it's a speculative asset. It does not serve a medium of exchange or unit of account purpose. And so if you go into it without understanding, you could get hurt. And so we're going to be thoughtful about what is the right time to try and scale it up. We'll have to work with the regulators, of course, to be able to get there.
Understand. Okay. And I think this will be the last question that we're having for this question and answer segment. The question that we have is again a bit more broad. What is your best advice that you can give to the common people of Singapore in terms of increasing their wealth and making good decisions financially?
Well, I think as a general rule, I think enough research has shown that being a participant in the financial markets, and particularly being long-term players in the equity markets, is beneficial. The global research shows that, if you're a long-term consistent player and you start young and start investing and saving when you're young, you can get a 7-8% return over life. And because of the power of compounding, the power of compound interest, we can start early and putting aside money early in a systematic, smart way in the market, it can be a significant creator of wealth. So my fundamental view is that keep, start early, save, invest, be consistent with the investments, and don't try to time the market. You will see ups and downs. So if you have a long-term view, I think you'll wind up being a winner. Now, outside of that, you get to another level. Once you've got enough money in your then if you want to start making some bets, I would say start thinking long-term. Where is the world going? Where is technology going? And what do you observe around you? If you see that more and more people are increasingly buying electric cars and Tesla cars and whatever, then it's quite clear that this is a trend. And so you might want to say in the long term, I want to be long electric vehicle consumption. I want to be long green and sustainable. So make some thoughtful, fundamental bets viewed on the basis of where is the world going from the way you see it. And again, write them. Don't go in and out, write them.
All right. Thank you so much for that wonderful advice. I think that's something my generation has to keep in mind as well, because we're young and like you said, start early definitely helps in the long run. So that is all the questions we have for the question and answer segment. And so we've come to the end of our discussion with Mr. Piyush. We managed to cover so many topics, especially the question and answer segment, hearing the questions from the audience, really grateful for that. And thank you for all the advice you've given us as well, Mr. Piyush. So I definitely learned a lot. I hope the audience has learned a lot as well. Do you have any last words of advice or any thoughts you'd like to share with the audience before we end this segment?
No, I guess I just want to go back to the original theme and how this started. And again, my kudos to Koti. I think this idea of integration is very important, and particularly for all of us in the Indian community. I think we need to bend over backwards, at the same time put our best foot forward to make sure that new people in the country integrate with the older people in the country, we integrate across the various segments and cultural groups. And learning sessions of this sort are therefore fantastic. I'm looking forward to the day when we can take it from virtual to live. The problem with the virtual session is you don't get to meet each other. And finally, the power of this will come alive and people get to meet each other and form relationships and bonding. But I hope that's where we can get to, because I think that's very, very crucial in the times to come. It is also very important because all the questions we talked about, the social issues, the philosophical issues, the behavioral issues, the only way to resolve them is through people-to-people engagement, through the sense of touch. And we need to make sure that we embrace that really in everything we do.
I think it's wonderful for me to hear that someone who is a leader in the tech industry also understands the importance of the human touch and social sciences as well, because as Miss Universe, one of the causes I believe in is building a more inclusive society. And it's often seen that sometimes we feel that technology companies are just doing what they want and maybe they don't care about, building or, growing our community. So it's really nice to see that everyone is focusing on the same thing, which is building a more inclusive and stronger society as well. So I think with that, thank you so much, Mr. Piyush, for your time here.
Thank you. You were great. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. So I will be handing over my time to Mr. Satya, who will continue with the rest of the event. And we'll be taking a group picture at the end. So please stick around, everyone.
That's right. Thanks, Mr. Piyush. Before handing over to Satya, actually, see, while this session is happening, I got many messages from from the parents, couple of parents, my friends. Okay, so the question here is, it is not in agenda, but pardon me, Mr. Piyush, actually, the question is here. See, the kids, the playing mechanism before the pandemic and after the pandemic entirely changed. Previously, the kids go to playground around 5 o'clock in the evening and they come back around 8 and 10 o'clock, playing with the friends outside, etc. But after the pandemic, they started playing computer games, especially Minecrafts, etc. So they are building virtual homes, virtual lands in Minecrafts. After announcing new technologies by recently Microsoft, okay, and kids are start saying, okay, we are already building virtual lands and virtual homes. Now, parents got confused. Is this really better, or the physical, the games, or which before pandemic, which is the better? What would the advice you can give to the parents to make children reach their fullest potential?
Koti, I think as everything in life, the answer is balance. I do think there is some value in playing games on electronic media because you learn. You learn more about the virtual world, you learn about coding, you learn about this thing. And I think in the world we're going to, having that knowledge, as I said earlier, is quite important. On the other hand, I also believe there's tremendous value in physical contact, and the amount you learn from sports, particularly team sports, playing with people, is also irreplaceable. And so to me, the answer is balance. I think what President Xi's done is actually quite smart, which is mandated you cannot do more than X amount of time on your computer games now. You can do that in China, you can't do that elsewhere. But certainly my advice to parents is, while it can't be regulated, you can build a value system and a culture in a family which says you need to do a little bit of both. You need to go out and play football or cricket or whatever it is in the field, and as well as keep some time to do your digital stuff as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Piyush. And now I hand over to Mr. Satya. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Piyush and Ms. Nandita, for an insightful and thought-provoking discussion. Mr. Piyush, we are eagerly waiting for the pandemic to slow down and allow us to have a live and physical session so that all of us could be able to hear you live and meet you live and have a meet and greet session. Hope you will you will give us a chance to have a meet and greet session with all the audience or people who believe and who would like to listen to you live.
I look forward to it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Piyush. Now, moving to the next segment. For STS Connects to progress on, we are going to have a monthly start with. We are going to have monthly sessions, and maybe depends on the frequency. We might make it fortnightly also. So right now, we are happy to inform you that topics and speakers are lined up for our first two sessions. I'm happy to introduce them to you and hear in the words of experts. Our first session is on cybersecurity awareness by Mr. Poram Mehta on 4th of December. A detailed flyer and all the details of registration will be sent to you across shortly to all the participants, and you can spread it across to all your friends and relatives who will be interested in attending that session. Let me give a brief about our first speaker, Mr. Poram Mehta. Mr. Poram Mehta is the Chief Information Security Officer for PayPal Asia Pacific region. A seasoned professional and technical leader for over 2 decades in information security. Mr. Mehta has been instrumental in building secure technology solutions for multiple companies across a spectrum of sectors, including financial services, healthcare, telecommunication, and governments in North America and Asia Pacific regions. Welcome, Mr. Poram Mehta. Over to you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Satya, for that introduction. Happy Diwali, Happy New Year. Really nice time to be kind of coming together with the community on this weekend. Hope in whatever limited way possible, everybody was able to at least take some time and speak with the relatives, get together, keeping the SMM measures in mind. I just heard Mr. Gupta speak about it, and I really think, if anything, if people have recorded this, a recap of that session in every aspect of, whether it is how you live, what you want to do from a career perspective, where you want to go. There were so many amazing lessons from it. So it's a very hard act to follow. However, keeping the spirit of Sts Connects in mind, I'm really privileged and honored that Mero Akasaya and you all from STS have decided to embark on this initiative to truly see how, as digital transformation, as technology advancements actually helps transforming the lives of everybody around the world, creating applications and resources for us to truly, transform lives. We keep things in our from a trust, safety, privacy, security, keep in mind. And I'd love to, in the session, cover a few key areas that, once again, I think, Mr. Piyush touched on is, what does phishing mean? How do you, discern between a legitimate message and an illegitimate? When you use email, what type of key things to look out for to detect a phishing email? From an SMS perspective, when you use apps, what are the features that companies like DBS, PayPal, all of the others are making available to give more power to the consumers to choose, for instance, two-factor authentication? For, while we are investing lots of AI and other technology and trying to understand your behavior, your patterns, and find ways to protect any kind of fraud from perpetrating the system. But what can you do as an individual to truly take care of these things, whether it is your information, your money, your access and transactions and approvals and permissions that you grant? So really looking forward to going a little bit deeper into it on the December 4th session. And we'll can cover a little bit also about career paths that are made available. I mean, we heard about data and AI. Cybersecurity clearly is also another area that Singapore government, the academia, the private industries are collaborating a lot on, and creating ways in which we can try to fulfill the need in the workforce that is required, honestly, in this region with more than 600 million people coming online for the first time. A lot of silver tech, the senior folks coming on, and how do we create that balance between trust and innovation? So once again, December 4th, I think 10:15 a.m. Really looking forward to sharing details with the community, and congrats once again on this initiative. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Satya. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I was speaking to myself in the mute. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mehta, for giving us glimpse and making us excited about the upcoming cybersecurity awareness session. Our subsequent session is going to be about introduction to emerging technologies like big data, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing by Mr. Muni Vinay. Let me introduce a brief about Mr. Vinay. Mr. Vinay leads the regional data and AI operations for enterprise intelligence at Lazada. He has 13 plus years of experience in driving enterprise level digital transformations through AI and data. Mr. Vinay worked with many Singapore-based financial services, government entities, retail and e-commerce companies to scale up their data with intelligent automation initiatives. Over to Mr. Muni Vinay.
Thank you, Satya. First of all, warm welcome to everyone. And thanks to Singapore Telugu Samajam, Kotigaru, Anil, and the team, right? You're doing a fantastic job. I like your vision, right? Connecting community with the technology. So as part of this, I would love to see how I can contribute to this cause and then bridge the gap between the local community with the technology. And with that note, I will introduce about these emerging technologies. I think Piyush covered most of these topics during his speech. But let me see if I can break it down into a little more layman terms to cater to the young audience from the community attending this session. So let me give you an example, right? I'll speak about my personal experience, the e-commerce supply chain experience, right? During the pandemic, during the COVID 2020 times, right? Malaysia, Cameroon Islands, the farmers have dumped hundreds of tons of farmland and vegetables, because they couldn't sell. There's a physical lockdown, and all these produce has gone for the waste because they cannot literally sell in the physical stores. So this is the challenge being given to Lazada. So when we took the challenge, so we could able to quickly onboard the farmers within few hours, correct, and then help them put their farm produce details into the e-commerce site. And then within 3 days, we sold close to about 70 tons of the produce. So basically those tons of produce which were going waste, so we could able to sell them through our platform and then help the farmers in the need of the hour. And, if I can ask the question, can we achieve the same level of success 10 years back? Let's say if the pandemic would have stuck in 2009 or 2008 at such a global scale, can we really achieve such a feat? I wouldn't say might not be possible, or we would have done it differently, but by the not so accelerated way. So what is different this time? So what's happening this time? So what's causing that change? So what's creating that change, right? So I would say behind the scenes in our company, we could able to achieve such an accelerated onboarding and optimized logistics facilities to onboard the farmers, to put these farm details into the system, and put this and able to sell them very quickly is because of the data and AI power behind. And then not just that, right? So we could able to track some of these sales at a minute by minute basis. So we could able to see in our live tracker, this minute we sold about 2,000 kgs of say for example of fresh produce. And then such a tracking mechanism is also because is possible because of centralization of the data, correct? And this particular centralization of the data also acts as a key enabler to train the necessary AI models and even get into a better insights which humans miss. So with these amalgamation of data and AI, right? So we could able to create a value in the society. But we also face challenges today with the data and AI, right? People ask, what is your biggest challenge with the data and AI? Is it advancements in the technologies? Is it because good AI algorithms are not available? I wouldn't say no. That's not the problem. The fundamental problem with the data and AI are resource power, correct? So there are not so many people who are trained as a data scientist to be able to work with the organizations, build those AI solutions, and then create that value that AI is expected to create in a society. So which is where I think young crowd, right, in Singapore can pretty much think about AI as their career. That means the students are getting into the first time into the enterprise world can think AI as a career, leveraging the Singapore based courses like WSG and SSD programs. And then Singapore government has also collaborated with Microsoft to promote the AI awareness among the Singapore crowd, right? So that's possible. So which is what I'm going to cover in the January session of Sts Connect, a little more deeper understanding of what data and AI is, and then what as a student or basically someone who's in the mid-career wanted to enable the AI skills into your skill set, or completely shift from the operations to the AI enabled team. So that's possible. So I'm going to speak about some of these. And also the very important aspects of AI, right? The scalability from a technology perspective is lack of computing power. As Piyush mentioned in some of the topics, right? The carbon emissions produced to train a very heavy AI model is equivalent to the pollutants which is generated by the aeroplanes currently, just 2% of the pollution, I would say. So then how do you make it more efficient? How do you train the models faster? And at the same time, how do you achieve how do we break through some of the challenges that technology face, right? So that's where the concept of quantum computing comes into the play. So it works on the concept of quantum mechanics. So wherein the physical computers uses bits to store the information, the quantum computer uses something called qubits, so which worked on a fundamental concepts called entanglement. To put it in a layman terms, when bits scale 2 into n, right? For example, if you have 2 bits, which is equivalent to 2 into 2, which is 4 bits memory is what it can share. So, but when you're talking about qubits, right, it's grows exponentially. So meaning if you have 20 qubits of a quantum computer, you can store million values in parallel. So it's a very huge computing power that we're talking about. So and then with such powerful quantum computers, right, we could able to do years of job within days, a specific type of tasks. I was speaking to Sam from BBVA. So in fact, they're already using some of these quantum computing concepts to add value in their financial operations. So they could able to do the credit scoring at a near time or a real time using terabyte data, and then a very heavy big data, and then they could able to create the value. So even though the technology is very nascent, I would say it's like a baby step. The value that it is expected to create going forward in like next 5 to 10 years is like is revolutionary. So and then being this revolutionary technology is very well viewed from a strategical sense by Singapore government. Singapore government has also launched various initiatives for young students to get into this area, right? The quantum computing, and then also adopt and use quantum computing at a different scale in Southeast Asia, especially Singapore. So I'm going to talk about that in a separate series. So with these 2 series, we will tell you how we could able to add value using data, AI, and quantum computing, how some of the young audience can adopt these technologies, and then contribute not just value to your organizations, but to the society as a whole. And then Sts Connects is actually in the center of it, right? To make that happen, to connect the local communities, and then give awareness on these emerging technologies through my series, and take it to the next level. So with that, I think I'm looking forward for these future sessions. Thanks a lot for the opportunity once again. Over to Satya. Satya, please go ahead and.
Thank you, Mr. Vinay, for giving us the glimpse which boosted our interest towards the upcoming topic on emerging technologies and how important they are in our day-to-day life. Looking forward for your session in January. Now, before going to the next segment, I will be sending the detailed program flyer to all the individual participants who participated today, as well as to all the participating organizations. I have a request. So please do forward it to all your contacts, because we'll try to reach out to as many as possible through the possibility what we have in our social media. But we do request you all to forward it to as many as possible, because let's get more people benefited, and let's all help each other to grow together. That's the main intention. And as Mr. Koti has mentioned, let me brief, like it's all about socialization, connectivity, and networking. So hopefully we'll wait for the physical sessions to we will wait for the COVID pandemic to allow us to meet physically, have interactive sessions, so that it will be more meaningful. Let's socialize, let's connect with each other, and network with each other to help each other. Thank you very much. And before going to the group photo of all of us with our guest of honor, I'll now request Mr. Anil, event lead of Sts Connects, to render vote of thanks message.
Thank you, Mr. Satya. Good morning, everyone. Wow, that was an amazing and electrifying session. First of all, on behalf of Singapore Telugu Samajam, Management Committee, and other associations who are collaborated with us, a very hearty gratitude to all the speakers for sharing their valuable views with us in this inaugural KONNECTS session and making this grand success. Special mention to our honorable and respected chief guest, Mr. Piyush Gupta. Thanks a lot, sir, for giving your vital time from your busy schedule to grace this occasion. We are all inspired today by your highly sparkling words and insights. This would certainly motivate us to organize future Connect sessions with great enthusiasm and help us realize our vision, that is connecting communities through technology. Further, a big thanks to Ms. Nandita Banna for being our moderator and helped us to steer right questions, topics, discussions with Mr. Piyush. Mr. Satya, thank you for your efforts toward anchoring today. We have been fortunate to have renowned speakers with a good subject matter industry expertise. Thank you, Mr. Forum Mehta and Mr. Munivinay, for providing us a glimpse on the emerging topics like cybersecurity and data science. Also, I take this occurrence to thank the STS Management Committee and President, Mr. Kotireddy, Secretary, Mr. Satya, and other committee members who supported this session. Furthermore, I would like to place my heartily thanks to all executive committee members of collaborated associations, Lisha, Tamil Language and Cultural Society, GoPio, Singapore Sindhi Association, Hindi Society, Singapore Kannada Sangha, Bhojpuri Association of Singapore, Indian Women's Association, Singapore Malayali Association, Singai Tamil Sangam, Singapore Khalsa Association, Singapore Kadayanallur Muslim League, Assam Association Singapore, the Kamala Club, Bengali Association Singapore, Bijar Singapore, Odia Society of Singapore, Tamil Representative Council, and volunteers, because of whom we made this meeting possible. Last but not the least, thanks everyone for attending our inaugural Connect session on a lovely weekend. It has been our tribute to host all the members and audience of this meeting. See you all on 4th December for our next technology session on cybersecurity. Have a lovely weekend. Stay safe and healthy. Yeah, please be on. So we'll be taking a group photo. Please turn on your videos. Our guys will be
so you'll be getting
you a request. Yeah, sending a request to turn on your videos. Please do turn on. Please look at your screens to accept the request.
Meanwhile, I just want to put forward one more note, like our doors are open. Speakers can contact us. You can refer speakers, any one of you, like who are subject matter experts or experts in the industry. Also, doors are open for the organizations who want to join us further. So in all the ways, doors are open. It's just an inaugural session. Please join us. Just give us a couple of minutes for people to accept the video invite and for us to make them panelists. There is a process involved in this. So, and thank you very much for sparing your lovely Saturday with the extended family. We are all your extended family. So thanks for considering us as your extended family, and thanks for being with us for a couple of hours on your Saturday. We have right now 150 participants live. So we can accommodate maximum of 100 at a time. So after taking the first couple of photos, then we'll let you know, so that few of you can drop. We can make the rest 50 as panelists, so that we can cover everybody. Thanks for your support.
Thank you, gentlemen, for inviting us. We are proud to be associated with such a wonderful network. I would like to take a leave, and please allow somebody else also to get into this. Join with you. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
No, let us take the photographers. We haven't taken it. Yeah, I'll let you know once we have done with that. So then whoever want to drop can drop that time. So let us capture you first. Yeah, please be there.
We all had a nice session, STS, and let us keep looking forward to the next 2 sessions.
Thanks, Lakshmi Narayan garu.
The session was very informative. Very good.
Thank you, sir.
This really goes back to a sudden meeting with Mr. Koti Reddy, which landed me in this. I really welcome this, and there's a lot to learn and share, I'm sure, in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your support and good words, which will motivate us to do better and improvise and any mistakes, because there are some in the starting, and we settled it a bit later. Please support us by excusing us from those mistakes. Thank you.
Taking this initiative, you have made STS proud.
Satya, are we ready to go? I have another meeting to dial into in a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, whoever in the
It's okay.
now, maybe feel free to leave so that we can continue.
Okay, sir.
And we can add them. Just one more minute, please.
Okay, maybe whoever are already captured, please feel free to leave so that we can quickly add the
I'll leave
others.
now.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you,
thank
thank you.
Thank you.
Piyush, give
Thank you.
sorry,
Thank
sorry,
you,
it was
STS. Bye.
another 30 seconds. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That was really informative, and I'm the president of Bengali Association Singapore. So we'll look forward to more such sessions in future.
Thank you, ma'am, for joining and supporting us. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I'll
Thank you.
take a
Thank you
last
so much.
picture, sir.
Very informative session. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Looking forward. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Okay.
much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Mr. Piyush, and a wonderful message today. And I think, we don't want to hold you much time, and thanks a lot. Okay, let's end the
Thank you,
session.
everyone. We are ending the session.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Officially closing the session now. Thank you.